Is the Bible scientific? It's a fair question. We're going to cover it in this video. Science isn't a thing, it's a method of inquiry about the world. And so let's walk through that, unpack it just a little bit. Now, the thing about science is it's a moving target. And today's science undoes last year's findings. And that's a great thing about science. It is skeptical at the core. And science is at its best when it's talking about physical things, things that really are observable, measurable. But the scientific method came to be seen as a way to know if a thing is true. And if you're talking about science and truth, now you're in an entirely different field, and that's called the philosophy of science. Is the Bible scientific? That's an important question, because we want answers, and we want our answers to be true. We want them to be trustworthy and verifiable. So that's really the question, I think, that's being asked is the Bible trustworthy? Is it a source for truth? Well, when you say that a thing is scientific, it's really shorthand for scientific method. The scientific method was a way of asking questions about our world. And it was developed in the 17th century and gradually grew because, especially in the beginning when our knowledge was so small, the scientific method just exploded our ability to gain new understandings about our world. And it works like this. First, you have to be questioning, and you look at the world and you find a thing you want to study. It could be something, in nature. It could be something about olive trees. It could be something physical. It could be about physics. Do objects fall at the same speed, no matter if they're big or they're small? So you have a question in your mind, and you have to come to a conclusion and state a hypothesis. I believe they do, or I believe they do not. Well, now you have to come up with what seems to be a fair and controlled system of experimentation. How will I now experiment to see if I can prove or disprove this thing that I've stated as my hypothesis? Now, in real science, if you disprove your hypothesis, that's just as good as if you prove it. The point is to grow in scientific knowledge, that we are testing and verifying information about this amazing world. And so the scientific method continued to grow because of all that we were getting out of it. Last step, you need to publish your findings so that other people can see your experiments and pick it apart, because good science is skeptical. When people say, trust the science, I know they're just trying to manipulate me, because science doesn't trust itself. That's why it works. Everybody who posts research, other people are going to pick at their research and say, it wasn't good research because there was this variable and you didn't have a control group and your sample size was too small. That's how science works. That's how we get to go forward, is we pick at ideas and we try to prove or disprove them, and then we publish them. So good science is always transparent so that everybody can see your method. And if you just follow good scientific method, that's respectable. I had a whole career as an academic, so this is my world. Now, here's where things get a little fuzzy. For the first 200 years, this is awesome, because we didn't know very much. And so the scientific method began to give us these huge breakthroughs in many different areas. But then it started taking over all the fields of inquiry and started asserting itself with these other beliefs. And we call it a priori beliefs. That means before you even do the experiment, you already come to a certain conclusion, like it can't be this and it can't be that, before you even start looking. And with the scientific method, because it has one great handicap, and that is, for all the good that it does, it can only deal with things that are material world. It can only deal with things that are objective, that are things, and you can study them and break them down, because you have to be able to measure it. It has to be testable. And there's a lot to life that is not testable. Uh, a lot of fields were invaded by the scientific method, and frankly, to make a lot of fields more credible, as in the case of psychology, they aligned themselves with the scientific method, and it started being called a science. The first 200 years, scientific method rocked. We learned so much, but we did learn a lot. And as we began to dig down deeper, you got all the stuff in quantum mechanics that started rising up, and it undermined our whole thought about this world and the orderliness and the objectivity of a scientific method world. Quantum physics said, I don't think so. There's just mystery, almost spirituality at the root of physical universe. If it's always that famous quote by Einstein where he said you have to sneak up on it. Like if it knows it, if at that subatomic level it knows that you're trying to study it, it will change its behavior. And it's, how can that be? And now we're finding all these other mysterious things because others are branching out. We've got paranormal studies, studies of twins that never even knew each other, and all the coincidental things. We've got now new understandings that even nature has some way of communicating with each other, that although the sun has gotten hotter, over 15% hotter, the planet has somehow communicated to lower its temperature and create, it's a mystery to us. Well, if you limit yourself to a physical only universe that can't have a spiritual dimension, it must only be molecules and things that we can count and study, then you've limited yourself to too much of our world, and our good research is already turning over a lot of that stuff. Because when someone says trust the science, it really does mean they're manipulating, because it changes. All we could really say is today's best understanding is, because as we go deeper, we find other things. Now, is the Bible scientific? No, of course not. Nothing was scientific method until the 17th century. And the Bible is the earliest original human book. The story that opens the Bible is the earliest human story. And so now we're talking about truth again. Can the Bible lead you to truth? Well, if the questions you're asking are, who am I? Why am I here? Do I have a purpose? Was I created, or did I just pop up? Is there a hand? Is there any kind of bigger presence in the universe? Humans are mysterious creatures. The Guardian published a story in 2015 about the top 100 scientific journal findings that have been reported in the scientific journals. And so they peeled out the top 100, and 270 scientists from all over the world, psychological scientists, social scientists, took those same experiments and they ran them again. And they found that 75% of them, they could not replicate the results that the person claimed in the first study. These were studies about anxiety and prejudice and violence and all the different drivers of a human that makes us problematic. And so they began to question anything that is called science that involves itself with psychology. And then on top of that, there's been all these other research that shows when scientific research is funded by corporations, 75% of the time it will align itself with the stated reason for that corporation to fund the thing. You see, it's all about the money. We go in a circle. So if you're seeking for science and the scientific method to lead you to truth, you're going to run into a wall real soon. There's a certain kind of truth that it can uncover if the science is left unguarded and left open and left transparent. But I'm seeking for truth, and I hope you're seeking for truth. I want to know the truth about this world. I want to know what's up with this planet. I mean, you compare it to every other thing in the universe, those are just rocks. There's not even one bacterium alive on them. And yet here we are. And we've got this beauty and this amazing, it's like, what is this place? And what is a human? Look at a human. People are so amazing, even for all the problematic side of us, people are awesome. And there's love, and there's hate, and there's obviously evil. And sometimes evil seems bigger than human. It's like coordinated, conspiratorial, beyond what any group could pull off. It's planet-wise these days especially. It's just very troubling. The level of coordination between hate and murder and just the whole way our minds are being messed with. Is there evil? Is there evil at a level beyond humans? And what about the evil that's inside of me? Because I feel it there, my own lying, my own insecurities, but my own anger, my own tendency to hate. Where does this come from? These are questions about truth. Is it worth finding love? Is it worth trying to find somebody to do life with? Is it worth having children? What are children? These are important questions. They're questions about truth. Is there truth? Is there a truth? Can we find a truth, or is everything just my truth? If these are your questions, then the Bible is going to be an amazing source of comfort and encouragement for you. And I'd like to unwrap the Bible for you a little bit as we go forward in this series. But in order to understand the Bible, you first got to understand the code language it was written in. And that is the subject of my next video.